If any of you have taken any other CHS classes through like Pitt, like if you had chemistry in 10th grade, you had to go to Pitt to take labs. Anyone taking business calc with Mr. Clark, I think you have to take like an exam to get the CHS credit for it and stuff like that. For our class, we don't have a set. We don't have to go to Pitt on campus to give a speech or anything like that. There's not a specific midterm or final exam that gets given to us. However, the one requirement that does happen is every year there's one topic, one resolution, one idea that all CHS classes have to investigate. So it doesn't mean we have to spend a whole semester looking at it by any means, but it's supposed to be a fairly large portion of the class or a semester class. So, one speech assignment taking 2 to 3 weeks, I think would be a significant amount of time. And that resolution is this one where it says social and mass media improve democratic decision making. Doesn't mean we're going to do that speech 9 times with 2 of you, going against one another. We had the technology distorts privacy, where we repeated that argument multiple times. And by the time you do a topic, the second, the third, especially the 4th time, argument kind of starts to get stale. But the idea is that should be the basis of general arguments. And so in a way, we kind of make our own personalized offshoots where they can be very specific, or they can be concepts that are still kind of general, abstract, and related to it. So the end goal is Sean finds an opponent, they agree upon a topic, and they investigate it and debate it in front of the class. So it would pertain to this idea of social and mass media, improve democratic decision making, but that doesn't mean by any means that would be the resolution. You might look at the mass media portion, you might look at social media, you might look at a specific instance where you would say this does or does not improve. So for today and kind of going into tomorrow, just want to start to try to get some general concepts, feedback as to what we actually think about that topic in itself, which I thought I had it on here, but I didn't. So when you see that statement, from an argument standpoint, what ends up kind of being the initial reactions to it? And so that could be, are there any words within it where needs clarified as to what do we really mean by democratic? What's the difference between social media, mass media, things of that nature? But when you see that resolution, what are like initial reactions to it? And not in the sense, I like it, I dislike it, it doesn't matter. And we're not really using that one per se. But would you agree, disagree? Do you think some forms of media are better than others? Do you think it's important that media gets utilized? Certainly with elections taking place, now you start to see how all of these things can start to work together or maybe against one another.
I almost immediately agree.
I'm sorry?
I almost immediately agree.
Almost immediately agree. Okay. How come?
Because I immediately thought of social media and how the increase in social media has brought social awareness, and how as more people are becoming aware of how the world works, they start to change their democratic decisions.
So social media leads to increased awareness, which we're looking at as being a good thing. And for when you think of democratic decision making, Sarah, what does that mean to you? Because I think that might be important for us to kind of consider what are definitions or what do we mean by it.
Yeah, I considered it more of what the public chooses, whether it be voting in an election or just making new laws in just political wise.
Okay, so choices made by the public. So it could be an election, it could be a referendum, or it could just realizing that, hey, this is a social issue that needs increased awareness, people need to be more educated about it, let's get the message out. Anyone see in Poland what is going on so far as a little political upheaval? Poland government is traditionally very conservative, very Catholic-based, a lot of influence from Catholic Church, and so a hot topic within there is abortion. Their abortion laws are exceptionally strict. In current law, I think there are only in Poland 3 reasons as to how a woman can have an abortion. victim of rape, incest, or if it is medically going to be harmful to go through childbirth. If the mother's health is in danger for childbirth, then there could be an abortion. Otherwise, anyone getting an abortion, I think it's a 5-year jail sentence for either performing an abortion medically or receiving one. There is, and they have not made it law yet, but there is a strong push within their largest political party that all abortions would be illegal. So regardless of the circumstance, it would not be allowed. And so there's been a lot of demonstrations going on in Poland, and how is that word getting out for a large number of them? It's through social media. You certainly take a look at political uprisings that have happened throughout the course of the last 5 to 6 years. Social media is usually a way in which that word gets out because you're able to maybe get past any kind of government censorship that would be taking place. Someone made the idea that maybe, it could be debatable as to do they improve democratic decision making, but they certainly initiate or kind of instigate those things to happen, and then people make their decisions whether we think that's good, bad, or indifferent. What else so far as reactions to it?
I think they not suggest, but they sway the crowd just by what they say, because some people just easily believe what they
When you say they, are you thinking?
They get them to believe something.
Like, are you thinking of the publicate, like websites, blogs, the social media, like media in general tends to sway. So not necessarily just social media, but any kind of
just like
publication. Like opinions. And I think most people would agree that probably media tends to be biased, some form or fashion, and a lot of times it might kind of balance one another out. I don't know if Haley had a hand, or Alec, if your hand was up.
Well, I think my hand was up before, but I was just going to bring that point up in the first place. Is that people tend to watch the media outlet that they're going to slightly agree with, and that'll probably tilt them even more in that direction. So I think social media will create somewhat of a bandwagon effect.
Okay.
Or just a bandwagon effect for any policy. I think it could be polarizing.
So the intent, well, who knows? That might even be dangerous. In theory, what's the purpose of news, or media, whether it be newspaper, magazine?
In theory,
The whole idea, in theory, would be to inform, but argument would be that might not necessarily be the case, because as a user of media, I would want to try to probably tap into as many viewpoints out there so that I can therefore come up with an objective opinion about something. But your argument would be, I'm probably going to watch or read something that I kind of already agree with, so it's going to be more of them preaching to the choir where, yes, I agree with that, you're right, aha, and therefore I'm kind of discounting that opposing viewpoint in it all. I mean, if you think about a lot of Google News, the news app that's on Apple, before you start using any of those things, first thing that I have to do is check off what are my preferences. Would you like to get news about baseball? Yes, please. Would you like to get news about entertainment weekly gossip? Sure. Would you like to get news about foreign affairs? No, not really. Are you worried about business, economics? No. Do you want political stuff? Sure, I guess a little bit if it's dealing with domestic. But I kind of pick what I want to read, and therefore, what's my news feed? The stuff that I already kind of want to read or have some interest in. But you're right, I'm probably not going to be getting objective viewpoints. Or if there's some kind of real important foreign, international, global issue going on, it's possible that if I keep my head under the rock long enough, I won't really know about it, whereas other people, if they have feed preferences, they could be getting more of that news.
And I wanted to add to the theoretical agenda of the news is that it's, in theory, it's to inform, but usually they want to sway based on their beliefs. They want to sway to their side, so they'll either leave out certain information or exaggerate other facts.
Sure. When it comes to political news, I think most people look at Fox News as being more conservative, Republican in nature.
CNN, some will say liberal, some will say in the middle. MSNBC more of the liberal. And so, and for us in Pittsburgh, Post-Gazette tends to be a little bit more liberal. The Trib tends to be a little bit more conservative. I don't remember the exact headline, but I remember last week after watching presidential election, the most of it, the headline in the Trib was, Trump's efforts, or Trump makes strong effort to push off Hillary's arguments or whatnot. Whereas you look at Post-Gazette, it was more of landslide. Hillary Clinton has won this debate. So certainly those agendas can take place. Can you trust the news? Sarah's going, nope. Alex kind of going, no. Why not?
Because they only give you what they want to give you.
Okay. So it's kind of filtered in some form, some way. Any other reasons why you can't trust it?
Today, we were talking about like the decrease in newspapers and how like if you're getting your news online, and it's really easy for people to just make things up. And then like some newspapers, you can probably trust a little bit more.
What happens if I write something that is definitely false in print?
People can immediately like find that.
I mean, I like from I could get possibly fired. I could legally, I could get sued for, there's slander and there's libel. I believe slander's the speaking, libel's the written. I might get the two confused. I think that's the way it goes. Online, it's still very murky. Like, what is, whether it be government print count as much as something else? If I come out on Twitter, and say something about Sean, assuming that I'm not, a teacher, that's going to be a whole other kind of issue. But just random person goes, Sean, is a criminal. I'll avoid him. You can't really do a whole lot against me. Now, cyberbullying, things like that, that is starting to become more of certainly a chargeable offense, but it's a lot more murky than if I publish a newspaper article in the Post-Gazette with his face, avoid this man at all costs. He will harm you. Now, he's already laughing at you. So yeah, certainly that decrease in print, it can bring up a whole idea about questionable content. Sorry.
I was just going to bring up as a sort of example the articles that we're doing for this essay. You would need people to make sure it's a credible source. So like a big news outlet that they kind of can't just make up stuff, and that they'll be immediately pulled out for it. So you have to bring up the question of how questionable can other news sources.
And that's something that you're already kind of doing with the SPAR debates as well, because I need to make sure the sources are going to be credible to at least some kind of extent with it. But yeah, if it's coming from something like Huffington Post, USA Today, ABC News Release, the assumption is there that there's probably going to be a little bit more credit to it as opposed to Mr. King's Twitter feed and all those kinds of things.
You never know, like, who wrote the articles and what they wrote on.
Sure. And certainly, as you're looking for articles, sometimes finding the author's pain. It's easier to kind of attach something anonymously and not maybe go through that fact-checking stage nearly as much. Did anybody watch presidential debate last week with social media, like going on, and then had
watch it through Twitter or something? Was that a thing that you could like stream it?
You can stream it.
I know you could definitely stream it through Facebook. I would imagine Twitter probably had something.
I know Twitter's like starting to do stuff like that. I'm pretty sure you could have watched like the London football game on Twitter. Because it was like really early in the morning.
Yeah, like to get the live feed as opposed. And really, I mean, that's even something like Olympic time. Social media really gets under fire because it's not, talk about the old days, like the 90s or the early 2000s, the emphasis used to be on reporting the news correctly. Now the emphasis is break the story. And a lot of times now, even like the news agencies, especially when you're dealing with like shootings or whatnot, they'll go estimated counts or unofficial report of, but they want to make sure they're the first one to break it, but we might not be entirely correct. But if you have like a London football game, Olympics going on in Rio or Sydney or you know, wherever in Beijing, people get upset that, hey, I know who won the basketball game or who won the gold in swimming, and I haven't had a chance to watch it yet on prime time. But the whole like social media aspect, you know, if you were to watch something newsworthy while it's going on, are you getting news coming in about it? Are you simply getting opinions that are meant to sway your votes? Clinton, you know, did an interesting thing during the debate itself where she really kind of brought it in. If during the debate you go to my website, you know, HillaryClinton.com, you will see the full running list of all the lies that Donald Trump is saying during the course of his debate. So in a way, that she's certainly kind of inviting that social media to come in. And people have said that, you know, certainly look at probably President Obama as really being one of the first candidates to fully, I don't want to say endorse, but promote, use social media as a way to get folks out for votes and things of that
I
nature.
just wanted to point out, they both said they were lying, but they both came up with the idea that, oh, well, he's lying, believe me, but if he's lying, why is there any proof that you're telling the truth as well?
Sure, I mean,
Just pointing out that social media, them having their own website about facts, if they're different facts, it's not really helping the
or certainly the way that you know, I don't want to say necessarily skew, but present it. I mean, Trump right now is under fire for not having to pay federal income taxes for 18 years. It's not my fault the system is broke, but I'm a person who's going to bring in change, whereas someone else is going to argue, you know, if you're against him, he's cheating the economy out of millions and millions of dollars through income tax. So I don't think social media or media in general necessarily changes the whole dynamic, but I think it brings another level to it. I mean, there's always going to be that merry-go-round, constantly chasing each other with facts, whose facts are right, whose facts are wrong, the way you interpret them. But it certainly makes it a lot more aware for everyone else. Come up with 5 characteristics that you would want in your president. Like, just jot down. It doesn't have to be number 1, be your most important. And I'm not saying you have to, like, looking at Hillary or Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, but if you could create, you know, what you would consider to be the ideal president, what would be characteristics or traits? Might be personality, might be, you know, IQ levels, I have no idea. Maybe you want someone handsome. Maybe you want someone not handsome, photogenic. You want someone 6'5", 350 pounds, Sean Bright, ex-president. You want someone who wears matching pens and sweater vests. I haven't had to break them out yet. Stay tuned. Doesn't mean that past presidents have actually had these characteristics. So what would you like them to have? Kaylee, what's one trait?
Honest.
Honest? I'm just numbering for my own need. Doesn't mean it's going to be the number one. Haley, what was 1?
Like, charismatic.
Okay. So like a presence.
Yeah.
Paige, what's something you came up with? Shay, I'll go to you next then.
Uh,
Intelligence?
Yeah.
Okay. Resourceful? That's a good one. Ellie? Patient?
I'll just get one I wasn't raising my hand without.
Just pointing at
Ability
you.
to compromise.
Compromise. I thought you were going to say space program.
Anti-space.
John?
Somebody can look at the big picture, not just look at what's happening right now.
Okay. So like dealing with the present, but also thinking forward. All right, Sarah,
I said loyal.
loyal. Are you thinking like loyal to the like people that he or she knows, or like loyal to
Their job and their
job? Okay, so like America in general. Any others you want to throw out?
diplomatic.
Diplomatic. Okay, Natalie.
Classy.
Classy. I have Ron Burgundy going in my head now. Stay classy. Qua- It would be nice if that were.
Yeah, you can make that as a career relevant.
So like, or you think like political experience?
Yeah, just think
Okay.
Believe it or not, this is not a career. Taking the office.
Should imagine there's a prerequisite.
Hey, you can experience somehow.
Let's not just start at the top.
Would you say
Hey, that's
The
that's
current-
a business end of story.
current media? So mass media, so, and generally mass media means like newspapers, magazines, the main print, TV, social media would be whatever apps or and social media things thinking about. Are there any of those that you think current media like eliminates or discounts or de-emphasizes? I don't want to say it's not important to be intelligence, but that's not as important or whatnot. Not saying that that would be one of them, but do you think there's any of those characteristics that media either de-emphasizes or opposite effect, where media emphasizes maybe more so than it needs to be?
I think honesty definitely.
Emphasize, de-emphasize.
I think it emphasizes.
Okay. In what way?
It emphasizes the need for it.
Okay.
We find that as we share more things, we're more aware of the lack of it.
So up arrow is going to be emphasized. So it's easier to kind of like fact check and look things up. Okay,
I
Jocelyn.
think it depends on like what make people get more like publicity or what will make the story.
From the media standpoint,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's just like if the really start going up and just kind of depends on like what they think
So it could depend on what the situation, the scenario is. If a person loses the cool, that could kind of become a big story.
Yeah.
Or if you do have, some kind of, I don't know, domestic affair or whatnot taking place, that could call into question honesty and whatnot. So it's going to vary.
I think it de-emphasizes the ability to compromise.
Okay.
Especially like in the election right now, people are so focused on their own party and like their own policies, and they're saying like, I will win for this specifically, not just we will try to fix it.
So like politically, bipartisanship tends to be at a high come election time, because you don't want to come off as being weak or too compromising when you're trying to win election.
Depending on what you're reading, it definitely de-emphasizes being classy. Because there's some buffoons who actually like what that buffoon says.
I think they're right now emphasizing patience because a lot of what you hear is about Trump's patience and temperament. So they're like kind of pushing that he doesn't have that right now.
I mean, the campaign ads right now, there's a lot of, I can't wait to bomb the, bleep out of those guys or hit that button and whatnot. Natalie and then Caitlin, just go down the road.
I think it de-emphasizes like the diplomatic sense or even just like the mature sense, and it's usually like through the candidates like own social media or like Twitter, like when they fight with each other or trying to make like those like immature comebacks with each other.
Okay. And so I think a lot of times when we say diplomatic, we tend to think like international diplomacy, but even like just diplomacy, between candidates
We don't even
themselves.
have domestic diplomacy.
Pardon?
We don't even have domestic diplomacy between these two goofballs.
Word choice, diction, very important.
That's the only word I can describe them as, goofball, buffoon, idiots,
Caleb?
poofing.
This election just in general, whoever like the candidate and whatever media is like for that person, it just they take all the ideas, the qualities, like those,
Mm-hmm.
and then depends on what they want. If they want to make their candidate look good, they emphasize it, and then if they want to make that candidate look bad, they say how that person de-emphasizes it.
So you would be saying these arrows you could certainly switch them depending upon which candidate's being spoken about by whom. They might even emphasize the classiness of their own candidate, but de-emphasize the classiness of the opponent and whatnot. Yeah, I'd say that's probably very true.
I think the media emphasizes like charisma a lot because sometimes you see like a little video of one of the candidates or like a past president saying something like funny on like Jimmy Fallon or Conan, and people are like, wow, he's such a great guy, like I love this guy, but that has nothing to do with the presidency. I think they like really emphasize charisma.
The reaction to you folks from this could be, who cares? But like 24 years ago, I think 92 was when Bill Clinton was running for president against George Bush, original. It was a big deal when he showed up on MTV because, yep, I mean, wow, look at that guy. And it's not that they're going, he's the coolest guy ever, but it was, that's so unpresidential-like. Or the fact that they did town hall meetings and they were aired on MTV. And I think the one synthesis essay we were even looking at last year talked about, person asked the question, do you wear boxers or briefs? Who cares? But it made the candidate more personable and more like of a celebrity as opposed to, necessarily a politician. Would you say that mass media has been good for presidential elections?
JFK.
And I mean, and I don't think there's an easy yes or no. I mean, people are going to nod their head yes or no. I mean, you think about how it would have been 100 years ago or 150 years ago. I mean, the candidate you probably would not have seen, unless you're in a big city on the railroad line. You might have heard things on the radio come 1920, but you're not going to see them on the TV. Are we more informed about the candidates today? Probably to make that argument. Are we more poorly informed about the candidate? Are we more informed about things that don't really matter? That could also probably be an argument as well. On Twitter, a whole issue came up. Is that a toupee or real hair?
For sure, it's okay.
Waiting for the conspiracy theorists of how the moon is going to connect with Trump's hair. I'm not sure.
Wow.
I figured you would chime in. When it comes to Hillary Clinton, a lot of the conspiracy theorists or whatnot are dealing with not her hair, but her health. And certainly the whole email thing and whatnot. And so there were pictures from the debate last week that are getting blown up where she bends over to shake someone's hand and there's some apparatus on her back that's sticking through her coat. What could it be? It's probably her microphone. She's wearing one on her lapel or on her jacket, but certainly it's turning into a big deal as to whether there's some kind of health issue that needs to be about. So one of the things that we can take a look at, a debate in itself could be media has helped presidential elections, and that could be a topic that we look at or go in a variety of ways. Tomorrow, I'm going to give you a list of some possibilities, not ones that you have to choose from, but at least kind of gives you an idea of how directions they could go. We'll explain the assignment, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm hopeful that maybe by the end of tomorrow, at least beginning of Thursday, you have a sense as to what you want to investigate and with whom you plan on debating. So we'll try to figure that stuff out so that by Friday we can get going.
Do we pick partners or are they
I'll let you start off with picking partners, and then if all heck breaks loose, switch it around. But I think we should be okay. Nice thing again with us, we got 18 people, so everyone's going to match up. It's not where we have to have like a group of 3 versus a group of 4 and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'll let you start. And then once you pick partners, you kind of can go through your arguments. Now, no arguments are going to get repeated, so it is a one and done. There might be some that are certainly going to be related to one another, but we're not going to have 4 people dealing with privacy and all that kind of stuff like we did